A generation of school kids could find themselves addicted to nicotine without ever trying a single cigarette.
They are targeting children, there is no question, because they're the next generation.
Disposable vapes have taken the market by storm, but children as young as 13 are getting addicted to these brightly coloured nicotine-filled vapes.
When he came to me with his handful of products and asked me for help, he said I wasn't expecting to become addicted, Mum.
I've been investigating why there's been such a sharp increase in the number of underage vapers and tried to find out the long-term health impact this could have.
Hook an old man like me and I'll probably have popped my clogs in 5 years, and that's not very profitable. Hook a young person of 17 and you've probably, if you're lucky, you've got them for decades.
This is Maria. Her son started vaping when he was 13 years old.
So at 13, we blame a lot on COVID, obviously, at the moment. But our children were at home. And so to be able to catch up on our work, our children were subjected to the social media or gaming platforms that were available to entertain them.
So what social media platforms was he using to find out about vaping?
He's indicated it was very much TikTok and Instagram.
And what impact was this having on your son?
Withdrawn, stayed away from the family more. He was coughing, and sort of nasally, a little bit more nasally. Whether or not that was associated with the vape, I don't know.
So how big an issue would you say this is within your son's school?
Well, his year group, he estimated himself that he thought that 30% of them would probably.
And what types of vape was he using?
Disposable, because of the access to them and the cost of them.
The number of UK vapers has reached a record high of 4.3 million. And while vaping is not a new phenomenon, disposable vapes are. Compact and cheap with flavours such as mango, watermelon and cotton candy, they've become increasingly popular. Industry data shows a major spike in UK sales of disposable vapes over the last year, with some retailers reporting a rise of nearly 900%. Research suggests this boom has a lot to do with younger adults, as from 2021 to 2022, the percentage of 18-year-old vapers using disposables has risen from 0.89% to 56.7%. But this has also filtered down to those under 18.
I'm Hazel Cheeseman and I'm Deputy Chief Executive at Action on Smoking and Health. Yeah, so we've been running a survey of 11 to 18-year-olds since 2013, looking at e-cigarettes. But we have seen, perhaps different from previous years, an increase in the use of e-cigarettes across 11 to 18-year-olds. When we surveyed in 2021, we found that very few young people were using disposable products, around 7%. 7% of the kids that vape, I should say. Whereas when we surveyed this year, over 50%, around 50% of the kids that vape are using these disposable products. It's a really dramatic change to the market in quite a short period of time. And the brands that young people tell us they're using are primarily these Elf Bar, Geek Bar.
But Maria isn't so convinced that the rise in underage vapers is as small as the survey suggests.
Personally, I don't think they've asked the right questions to the right people. I just don't feel it's correct. Based on what I'm seeing on ground level and via my children going out and what's going on in the world while I walk around the streets, I can't see it. I can't see it being correct.
I decided to speak to some teachers about what they're seeing at school. All three asked to remain anonymous in order to be interviewed.
So what has been your experience with students vaping in school?
Yeah, so it's definitely a weekly occurrence that we're stopping pupils from vaping. The large issue is that you can confiscate a vape pen or an Elf Bar or whatever they're using, but they're so cheap that they just can buy another one and then the next week it starts again.
Believe it or not, it's the younger ones that seem to be worse. I think with the 7, 8 and 9s, it's almost seen as a fashion trend.
There are people going around selling vape pens, older students that can get them more easily, for example, selling them to the younger students.
Pupils in year 7, I was speaking to the other day, and they thought that vaping was just water vapour.
What do you think are some of the biggest influences in young people taking up vaping?
So we've got this very visible, visual, very portable, quite cheap product. They're not, they're like £5 or less a pop. So they're quite easy for young people to purchase. They're really easy to pass around. There's lots of visual content online.
Everything in the last year always comes back to TikTok. Every new craze, every new trend, you know, they're sharing with their friends, they're seeing these cool trends, they're seeing these things and people they might look up to, or these influencers, people with a large following, thinking, wow, okay, well if they're doing it, you know, why shouldn't I be doing that?
ELF-BAR said it adheres to all ASA regulations on vape advertising, but a recent investigation found that ELF-BAR had been defying rules to promote its products to young people, as social media influencers claimed to have been paid or given free products in order to advertise the brand on TikTok.
Hi Jo, I'm Ken Daly. I'm the National Coordinator for the Trading Standards Heads of Service Society in Scotland.
According to the Action on Smoking and Health report, it found that 46.5% of 11 to 17-year-olds get their e-cigarettes from local shops.
Yeah, we had done a project at the end of last year, October through December last year, just because of the complaints that some councils were getting around vapes appearing in schools, for example. You know, kids getting access to these things. As you know, the main brand is ELF-BAR and Geek-BAR, and these were being counterfeited early on, so there were huge numbers of illicit product that was circulating.
In total, they seized nearly 90,000 illegal vapes from over 700 premises.
So in these cases, we just don't know what's in the vape, what people are vaping, so the chemicals could be a real issue. And while these might be anecdotally safer than smoking cigarettes, they're still not without some risk, especially if you don't know what's in there.
Was there any particular place where you found a large majority of these illegal vapes?
They're generally sold in the kind of smaller shop, yeah, as you can imagine, corner shop sort of thing. Anecdotally is where you would get most of these things, maybe markets, car boots and so on.
Is this issue just confined to Scotland?
No, it's definitely not. The same issues with the disposable vapes have been found right across the UK, and it's more than likely that they're coming into the country in England somewhere, one of the bigger ports.
Do you think that students within your schools would be able to tell the difference between a legal or an illegal vape?
I, as a teacher, was unaware there was illegal and legal vapes. Therefore, if me as a teacher is not even aware, I highly doubt they're being taught that at school.
I think they read the flavour, they see mango guava fun blast, and that's as far as their research into it goes.
So as there appears to be this growing number in underage vapers, what health impact could this have?
There isn't good evidence that e-cigarettes have caused hospitalisations in this country. There was a particular series of incidents in the US several years ago, which was linked to a particular kind of product that was on the market that was causing both lung injury and fatality. But we haven't really seen that in the UK. That those products were not on the market here. We haven't seen those sorts of immediate harm from these e-cigarettes.
However, according to this preliminary data published by the NHS, the number of admissions with a primary or secondary diagnosis of a vaping-related disorder has nearly doubled over the last 2 years. But it should be noted that these admissions do not represent the number of patients, as a person could have been admitted more than once.
I've been involved in e-cigarette cases. There was one in Nottingham, a teenager who was so sick that he was admitted to intensive care and not merely had to be on a ventilator, but he had to be on an ECMO machine, a sort of heart bypass machine, to keep him alive. And he was in intensive care for a prolonged period. And although thank God he survived, he still carries the scars in terms of the physical effects of the immobility. Yes, it's rare, but when it happens, it's a nasty condition. It can be. So I'm Professor Andy Bush. I'm Professor of Paediatrics and Paediatric Respirology at Imperial College, Director of the Imperial Centre for Paediatrics and Child Health, and an Honorary Consultant Paediatric Chest Physician. There are increasing numbers of cases reported of serious respiratory illnesses related to vaping. Now, some people will say, and they'll be right, that this is all related to cutting the liquids with cannabinoids, and about 80% of the cases reported are related to cutting with cannabinoids. That leaves 20% who are not.
Looking at the NHS data, it appears that the number of admissions are relatively small at the moment. But thinking long term, what do we actually know about these vapes? Well, not a lot.
So you highlighted that there's very little research on long-term toxicity, and of course that's right, because they haven't been around for long enough. You can't do a 20-year study in less than 20 years. But to me, if I have something that is more dangerous acutely than something else, to say, oh, actually it'll be much safer in the long term than this comparator cigarettes, is just ridiculous. It's completely illogical.
Vaping has helped many to quit smoking, but for Hazel, speculation about longer-term health implications could potentially put people off using these vapes.
It's important to try and retain some perspective, and going back to the data, yes, there's been an increase in young people using e-cigarettes, but it's still at quite low levels.
You're always going to get children that try something new, that try something they shouldn't be trying. But I personally think that the percentage of children that are choosing vape is a lot higher than would have naturally chosen smoking.
So what should be done? Well, Maria set up a petition calling for tighter restrictions on companies marketing vape kits at children and younger people.
There's no point asking for it to be taken away. No point asking for it to be locked in cupboards like cigarettes are. But the fact of the matter is, adults or those over 18 don't always choose a product based on how attractive it looks, but a child will.
We showed different versions of packaging to adults and to young people, and we saw that the branded, highly coloured branded packaging had higher appeal with young people, and when you took the branding away, they were less appealing. But when you showed the same products to adults, taking the branding away did not change the appeal to adult smokers.
I think they should be regulated as tobacco, plain packaging, health warnings, no smoking in public, no advertising. I mean, God knows how you regulate the internet and social media and stop that being exploited.
If we compare it to smoking, there's good long-term data as to its risks on respiratory diseases, on lung cancer. There's so much data we can use that you can use it to teach, whereas there's less long-term data on vaping. If I tell some student, oh, don't vape, it could be bad for you, it's almost a waste of everyone's time. We don't like to admit it, but we're almost a little bit powerless right now until some good long-term studies comes out on it. And it's kind of like, are schools doing enough? I think it's a hard answer because maybe we're not doing enough. I think we are actually doing everything we can right now.
Times Radio approached Elf Bar and Geek Bar for comment, but neither have responded to us so far. Elf Bar has previously said it was very aware of the UK regulations. The brand has a no paid for influencers policy in place and adhered to all ASA regulations on vape advertising. Their spokesperson said, "We are fully committed to addressing the issues of vape products getting into the hands of minors. This includes everything from cracking down on unofficial Elf Bar promotions on social media and rogue retailers. All Elf Bar packaging indicates that our products are not for sale to under 18s. A TikTok spokesperson said it had removed content flagged with it for violating its rules, adding, "Our guidelines make clear that content promoting the sale, trade or offer of vaping products is not permitted, regardless of age. We've investigated and removed the content flagged to us and taken action against these accounts."